let's pretend we have somebody who, arms is a weak point, or the goal is to maximize arm development, within a plan. I know for me personally, like I really like 4-day splits in my own training, but the one thing that always takes a hit during those is arm work. If it's an upper lower split, and that's assuming like I'm training lower body twice a week as well. And there's ways to shuffle things around, to accommodate that, but just a basic upper lower split, I struggle to put as much intensity into training arms after compounds. And, with the powerlifting side of things, it was like if I got to them, it's like I did 3 sets of biceps this week, and obviously that's not going to be optimal to move the needle. So, adding an additional day where I could maybe train like delts and arms is the priority, I think has made a big difference in my own training. I'm not able to do it every single week, depending on my schedule, but I notice stretches where I do that, like my progressions in terms of performance are more predictable because I'm hitting them fresh. And I think, Brad, you have the course on the vault about prioritizing, weak muscle groups. And I think, training what you want to bring up earlier in the session is a common theme for addressing weak points. But what else have you guys done, or Brad, with your athletes, or Nick in your own training? What else have you done for somebody who is wanting to emphasize that?
Yeah, and it's a little bit more than just the sets per week that we're kind of going for, right? Because a lot of times I'm like you, Brian. I get my 4 days built and get the total volume of my sets where basically we want them to be, right? And then I kind of start tweaking it from there. But then there's other aspects that I like to kind of throw in there as well. So, okay, I got a total on direct bicep work of 6 sets a week, and then you throw in the carryover from elbow flexion and whatnot. Maybe I'm at 22, right? And some of the things that I'll do is also start playing with some intensity techniques, Maybe those 6 sets a week, we don't just do straight sets to an RPE, Maybe we take those and do myo-rep sets with them. Maybe we take those to beyond failure, to where it's like, okay, I want you to do, of those 6 sets, I want 3 of those to be where you take the set to failure and then do a minimum of 3 partial range failure repetitions, preferably not the good old-fashioned clean curl that Brad's guilty of many, many years ago, but just good, failure repetitions where you're only able to get 30, 40, 50% of the range. I like kind of throwing intensity techniques in there as well. And then also kind of build periods of that too, to where it's like, okay, let's go ahead and build a block where 3 of those sets are failure sets. And then we'll transition into a block of myo-rep sets, Sometimes those sets will beat up your elbows, especially if you have a fair amount of lat work that's in there. And so then sometimes part of the period will be, let's just back it off here a little bit and let's just do straight sets to an RPE of 9. When that either you're going to fail on the next one or you suspect that you're going to fail on the next one, just call it right there. And it's just kind of a bridge block. I got that term from you, Brian. It's a bridge block of a little bit less intensity. But I'll kind of play around with those as well. In addition to looking at my whole sets, over the course of the week. And that kind of goes for delts too. I'll kind of play around with intensity techniques on lateral raises and using failure techniques there and myo-rep and things like that kind of just, that's like a variable that I feel like sometimes impacts overall volume in different ways. To kind of specialize, in those areas as well.
Absolutely. I think the use of myo-reps, like I'll combine, say I have a 5-day split and it's upper body where it's compounds. I might do myo-reps at the end of that. I think psychologically, this part I think is overlooked, the psychological element of it. If something is daunting on paper, you're more often than not going to be performing at your best.
Exactly.
And
You're
so,
not going to want to do it.
yeah, so adding, like rest pause, myo reps, whatever you want to call it. I mean, a time efficient strategy there at the end. It's like you can knock them out in, a couple minutes and move on to the next movement. So that I think is a good way to convince people like, okay, this isn't a question of, am I going to spend another 30 minutes in the gym by doing arms? It's like, okay, there's no excuse for me not to do them if I can just get up for this one set and, or clusters and then go from there. And then maybe on the other shoulder and arm day that's more dedicated to those, maybe use a little bit more straight sets. But Nick, were you going to say something?
Just with the intensity techniques and time saving, a good old bicep tricep superset. One of my go-tos. So I usually train arms twice a week, and then so the one day I'll do a bicep tricep superset, starting with a tricep movement, and then the next day I'll start with a bicep movement. This way, one isn't always a little fatigued when it's its turn to go. But yeah, Brad, like you said, I think arm training is a great time to use some intensity techniques because we're not under a heavy bar, we're not and under a heavy leg press machine or something, and so take it to the house, and I like extending the sets with some myo reps, some length and partials, BFR. I'm obligated to speak about BFR, and BFR is a great technique to add into arm training, especially in my kind of world where people are dealing with elbow pain that are coming to me asking how to still train arms with some pain. BFR is a great way to lower the load and still get the same effect.